The Piscatorial podcast.
It's been some crazy weather.
I'm looking out the window now, and I'm not shitting you. It's snowing. Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah. You swear, man.
It is snowing, and that's crazy, right? It's like I don't know if you find it, but I find with the fishing, it's when the temperatures are up and down like this. I always find it a little bit tricky.
Yeah. You never know. You can't second guess the fish. Do you know? So like, usually you get like a run of hot weather, and you sort of get an idea where they might be, and then you get the occasional day where it's cold, and you think, oh, that's not the one. But at the moment, it's like 4 seasons in a day.
Yeah, exactly. Sun's out, but it's still been really cold out. And I was sitting in my mum and dad's garden. First time I've seen them in ages, actually. So that was really cool.
Yeah, it is a weird one, mate, because when you're indoors, it's deceiving. I looked out earlier and the sun was out. I thought, it looks beautiful. Chucked all the fishing gear in the car, and I was like, Baltic.
Yeah.
But it's mad.
You've been doing all right though. You've been getting a few carp.
Yeah. I thought I'd have a little go for the carp, just the odd night and that. But yeah, so with this, it all sprouted from the local fishing thing. I'm quite fortunate, really. Live in Essex, it's like the mecca of carp fishing in like the UK, I'd say. I've ignored them for so long that I thought it's about time that I go and have a look. As a all-round angler, it's a bit rude to sort of ignore one species just because you've done it solid for 8-10 years or whatever. So it was about time I went back, and the same old rigs that I used before still work now, and I clearly haven't. In fact, actually, I think I've come back as a better angler just for fishing on rivers where you might be in a different postcode to a fish instead of just a lake where they're all in there and you think, well, they're in here somewhere.
I think a lot of people are saying that about being forced to fish locally, aren't they? They're sort of discovering places that or reconnecting with places they used to fish, and sort of almost forgetting what it is that they've got on their doorstep, and it's given them the opportunity to fish them again. Yeah,
I had a rubbish start. I'm the first one to say I had a rubbish start to the year. It's difficult when you're an all-round angler like ourselves.
Yeah.
You think, right, I'm going to go and target perch this weekend. And if that doesn't work, you either go again the next weekend, or you think, right, actually, I might go for the chub. And then if that don't work, and it's like suddenly you're starting chasing all these species and you're not actually getting anywhere with them. You get one good session and you think, right, I'm going to hammer these until they stop feeding. But sometimes it's like I've got so much option that I don't know what one to go with.
Yeah. They've got a word for it. It's choice paralysis. We use it in where you've got too many options and you end up doing none of them, or you just, it's the constant dilemma, isn't it? I look out the window and I kind of look at the conditions, and then I sort of take it from there, I think, as to what I'm going to fish for. And I think at the moment I look out the window, and because the weather's so up and down, it's a bit confusing what I should be doing. But I always feel lost at this time of year a bit anyway. I don't know if you are. It's almost like when the river closes, I just sort of like, I don't know, it's like I lose my bearings a bit for a few weeks.
Yeah, I am exactly the same. It's a little bit that disappointment, and then you just, that you want the rivers to open again, and you're excited for them to open again, and you think, well, how am I going to fill my time? Usually it's Tench for me, but I haven't really got any local Tench waters. I got let down on a syndicate and this, that and the other, but I'm enjoying the carp fishing at the moment, so I'm going to crack on with that in the spring, I think, and Tench will be there next year.
I think that would be the ideal thing, isn't it? The river's closed and you almost go straight into your tench fishing, but it's been so cold. I've had a couple of tench sessions. I have, but nothing's happened. Whether that's down to me being a bit rubbish, I'll blame it on it being too cold.
Yeah, use the weather, but Anyway, Nick, welcome to the Piscatorial podcast, number 1. So very special.
There we go.
It's make or break, mate. So we need to perform.
There you go.
Otherwise, it's the only one.
If I'm the first one, that makes me special, right?
Yeah. Or you were the first one to say you'll come on.
That's basically it, isn't it? Yeah.
But
nobody else stepped up. Is that what it is?
We've got a few people lined up. We've got some good guests and stuff.
Good.
So I'm hoping that people enjoy it. That's what it's all about. And
if I'm rubbish, let's hope they're good.
Number 2 might be all right.
That's it.
But have you ever done a podcast before?
I haven't. I've done a couple of these now where I'm just chatting to someone and they've put it on YouTube or whatever. So, but I don't know. It's a bit weird. Hopefully, I've got something interesting to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a podcast lover. I'd much rather listen to a podcast in the car than music, and I
Yeah,
think I try and put it onto other people as well because I enjoy it. Sometimes even when I'm out for a walk, or even sometimes in the bivvy, especially on the way to fishing. If I'm listening to a fishing podcast on the way, it just gives me that little bit of buzz. I used to listen to
yeah,
early in the morning the radio on Talksport. They used to have the fishing section early in the morning when I'm travelling and there's no
yeah.
one else on the road. And it's a bit like that now, really. But you can sort of do them yourself and have whoever you want on. And yeah,
And
I
you
say
can,
to people, if you want to listen to a podcast, you don't have to watch us. I'm going to give them the option to
yeah,
watch as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
But just crack it on when you're cooking the
Yeah, I
dinner.
mean, generally speaking, I don't tend to watch them. Like I think when Corda do, they sometimes do, but most of the time I just rather listen to them. It's one of the things, like you say. I mean, I know us blokes are terrible at multitasking, aren't we? But it's one of those things where you can listen to the podcast and crack on with something else.
Certainly, yeah. That's
Whether
exactly.
whether it's out on the bank or in the garden or driving the car or going for a little jog or whatever it is,
Yeah.
you can do
And,
it and
and
listen
I,
to a
I, I
podcast.
often, some of them are quite long, and I don't listen to them all at once. You can pause it and then come back to it. Your phone remembers where you was, and
Yeah,
you think, oh, actually, I've got half an hour of that podcast, and dinner's going to take 25 minutes. I'll stick that on. So that's the
yeah,
point, and hopefully,
I
just
agree.
a bit of background noise with a bit of a story and a bit of a laugh along the way. So
Yeah,
hopefully, we can achieve that. But I don't want it to be an interview. It's just gonna be us
yeah,
chatting,
yeah.
really, man. And I've watched some of the, like you said, you've done a few little videos in the past, so I've sort of heard your backstory, to be honest. And there's only so many times you can repeat the same sort of thing. But
Yeah, yeah,
and I want to try and keep it relevant to the time that this is coming out. So we're getting into spring now, and we're
yeah,
looking at the spring species,
yeah.
and so you've been preparing a little while, haven't you?
Been preparing what for spring?
Yeah,
Yeah, I always try and sort of be prepared and sort of second guess of what's coming next. So how have I prepared? I've got some new rods which I'm looking forward to. You know the trilogies. I don't know if you've used those.
no, not myself, but yeah, they
They
look
come
impressive.
highly recommended. So they sort of like they're a rod that have got three different tips. So what I quite liked about that is that one particular lake I can start on the 1.5 tip, but as the weed comes up, I can sort of move up through the grades up to the 175 and then upwards if I need to,
Yeah,
So I've got some rods, freshly spooled reels, and all that kind of stuff, and a few odds and ends and bits and bobs. Other than that, yeah, just bait prep,
yeah,
just making sure that I've got what I need. I think whether it goes to plan or not, I don't know, but quite often I'll use naturals early season. I don't know if you do, but I'll be on the sort of like maggots or worms and stuff like that after the tench. So I'll be after the tench, but it'd be maggots and worms early season, and then as the nuisance fish become a bit of a pain, then I'll tend to be moving towards like pellets and corn and stuff like that. I
yeah.
don't know about you.
I'm very similar. Sometimes I even do that in a session as well. Sometimes I'll start on the worms on a session and then
Yeah,
find that I can nick an early couple of tench when you're finding the bubblers, and then have to move on to a pellet, or even scaled down carp tactics of a small boilie or something like that. Especially the
yeah,
lakes I fish, they're full of carp, and the tench are a nuisance. So I'll go and catch your nuisance fish all day.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I did that on a weedy lake last year where I was quite happy catching all the fish in between. I was float fishing worms. I don't know if you saw the video, but
Yeah,
I just really enjoyed catching little roach that were about this big and only perch that were about that big and some little carp. I think
yeah.
they were only little F1s or something like that, but I was having a whale of a time.
That was a
Quite happy doing that. And then
that,
every now and then a tench would come along.
that was a mega weedy lake as well, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, really, really weedy. Yeah, it was like holes in the weed, which kind of meant, fishing like £10 line right through when you're float fishing, which isn't really the one, but it was working ish, kind of. Yeah, picked up some nice tench.
But the weed puts people off as well, which I like. I liked it when it was carp fishing. Oh, it's so weedy, you can't fish it. It's like, all right, yeah, you don't fish it, that's fine. Yeah, I'll sort my own way. And
Yeah, I think as long as you got your tackle, get the tackle right. I think I've had conversations with people in terms of things like rods and line, and things like what breaking strain line do you use for tench, for example, and I always think it's a bit of a nonsense question because, like I say, it's more to do with the environment that you're fishing in. Do you know what I mean? Is it weedy? Is it not? Are there snags? Are there not? You've probably I know I have. I've landed very big carp on small hooks and small line.
Yeah.
When the lake's not got much weed, hasn't got any pads, hasn't got any snags, you can let them just, set your clutch properly, and they'll just tire themselves out eventually, won't they?
Yeah, as long as you don't run out of line on the spool, you're laughing, really.
So I guess my point is that you've always just got to think, like in that situation, I've got stepped up to sort of size 6 hooks and £10 line, I think, when I'm float fishing for tench, which sounds barbaric, but
there's no point of hooking them if you ain't getting them in the net, is there?
Yeah, well, you saw what the weed was like. It was like, like holes in the ice, wasn't it? It's like you can't give them an inch.
No, proper weedbergs for.
That's it.
Yeah, I've known of you for a little while, Nick. Like there was a Facebook page that we was both a member of, quite a small closed knit community relating to a local river and perch that were within it. And I think before we'd even spoken, I'd read your blogs and things you'd done, the written blogs and bits and pieces, and tried to find out where you were fishing. And
most people do.
And then since, obviously, we've been fishing once together. And was it once or twice? I can't remember now. Once.
Not enough.
Yeah.
It was a good laugh.
It was a good laugh.
We absolutely bagged up on jack pike.
Yeah, I couldn't stop catching
them. You were particularly good at catching them, as I remember.
Yeah, every time it was like, is this a perch? Is this a perch? And no, it's a jack.
Is it bollocks?
Yeah.
It's another £4 pike.
But yeah, we do need to catch up again and do some sessions.
Definitely, mate, absolutely.
Because, we're fairly local to each other now, and, we do the same sort of thing, so it's good to go with a like-minded person and have a bit of a laugh. I don't know about you, or from watching your videos and that, you do a lot of fishing on your own.
Yeah, a fair amount, and I think that's because I don't tend to plan my sessions much. I do a lot of short, frequent sessions. That's what I'm like. And when I saw sort of you saying a question about this, like how many times do I go fishing in a week or whatever, and I'll go fishing probably, quite a lot, maybe 3 times a week, sometimes more. But for me, it's almost like going to the gym. I'm not even joking. Early morning is my favourite time to go. It's even better in the summer because it means I can get up at 4:30 and, I can get 4 or 5 hours fishing in before breakfast. It's a bit more tricky in winter, obviously, because I don't get light till 8. But yeah, so yeah, I'll fish 2 or 3 times a week, maybe 3 times, but only a few hours each time, So is that a lot? I don't know. If you added up the number of rod hours, it's probably only about the same as one bloke that goes all day once a week at the weekend.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what I do. But I'm sort of.
But I don't go with people because they're quite often they fit around my life, and I don't know, especially because I'm running a company. I don't really know even how my day, my week, or even my day's going to unfold sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's like when people say about weather conditions or moon phases and all that stuff. I go when I can go. If I've got a gap, if I've got an opportunity, I'm out the door.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't plan to go with people, because I don't even know when I'm going to do it half the time.
I mean, I'm a few years behind you in the whole family life. We're only just getting at the nappy stage. So obviously you can probably rewind your mind back to then and, it's another little hurdle. Yeah. Whereas you're coming to the end of this cycle now.
Yeah, I've got Joss who's 15, coming up for 15, and I've got Mia who's 18, off to university. So I certainly get a lot more freedom than I did when I was in your position.
Yeah.
But it gets better.
Yeah, I've got it all to look forward to, hopefully.
It's when you and your missus can go out to the pub again, without... I remember when Mia started to be sort of 14 or 15 and could look after Joss, and we were able to go back to the pub again. That was brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, you get a bit of freedom back again.
Absolutely, yeah. It'll come. How old are yours?
5 and 4, so they're
okay.
Very close together, fighting like cat and dog. 2 boys. They're going to cost me a fortune in fishing tackle if they want to go. I'm not going to force them, but I think they will because they're already going on about it now. So
what are they like? They fight a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah. They'll be really, really loving at parts. You know,
Yeah,
kiss and cuddle each other, tell each other they love them, and then the next minute they're punching each other in the head and just they grass on each other all the time.
yeah.
Daddy's done this, Daddy's done that. Earlier.
Because my brother was a year older than me, and we were like that without the loving part.
Yeah,
Just absolutely club each other to death. You could never have left us alone for prolonged periods of time. Not at all.
no, it's you know I wouldn't change anything, but
Yeah,
certainly challenging. But I think when I look back, when one was a newborn and one was only just one, that was
yeah,
tough times. And when I compare it to now, it's you know you can tell them something and they do it. You know, well sometimes, but they certainly believe it. You know, when the ice cream man's run out of ice cream, they believe it.
yeah. It definitely gets easier and easier, and then and now I do get a reasonable amount of freedom. But then, you know, I've got a business to run, and you've got to try and spend. You know, to be honest, I don't fish weekends much,
Yeah,
which is quite unusual, but works really well for me.
yeah,
I tend to do either things with the family or do stuff around here. I might go a little bit of the way. I'll go at the weekend now a bit more as we go into summer, a little bit.
yeah.
But generally speaking, I try and get these short sessions in during the week. And
Yeah.
I think that used to put you at an advantage, I think.
Yeah.
But not over the last year or so with furloughing and
No.
all the rest of it. But I used to do, overnighters on a Tuesday or Wednesday, these really bizarre nights, you know.
Yeah. I used to call it. Oh, I call them Boris Johnson sponsored anglers.
Yeah,
You get a lot of
yeah,
those on the bank now. But yeah, fair play. I think if I was in that position, then I would be doing exactly the same if I could. But like going
yeah.
back
So
to
it's like the weather's. If it was a bit warmer now, I'd have waited until the bank holiday was done, and I'd have probably been out night fishing tonight or tomorrow.
yeah.
You know, I'm not going to because I'm a bit of a girl's blouse now. I'm getting older. It looks a bit cold.
I mean, you said about sort of doing the family stuff and that, and you know, it's very easy to get carried away with fishing, and you got to keep
I
that
think
balanced,
so.
right? I think so many
100%.
people have lost relationships and things because of fishing, or
Yeah.
sometimes from stories I've read and that they've lost relationships over one fish. You know, some of these carp anglers, one pursuit for one fish, and and I'm very fortunate. I've got a very understanding missus, but
Yeah, I have.
on the same hand, it's very easy to take the piss sometimes, you know, and sometimes I think to myself,
I think
shit,
so.
I've took the piss a little bit there, you know, stayed on for that extra night or got back
100%.
3 hours late.
I think I don't know what you're like, but I've got quite an obsessive personality. It's whatever I do, I tend to sort of just chuck myself into it, you know, a lot.
Yeah.
And whether it's you know, camping or fishing or drinking or or whatever, I tend to just go 10 to the dozen. You know,
Yeah.
I've just got that type of personality.
Yeah,
So I'm constantly having to try and keep myself in check a bit.
yeah, it can be difficult, you
Yeah.
know. You know, whatever I'm into at that time, whether it's fishing or whether fishing's always been there. I've had other hobbies
Yeah,
that
same here.
I've
Yeah.
dropped, but you know, I just bore everyone to tears about it.
Yeah, I'm like
Including
it.
my missus. You know, she's just like, "Can you stop just talking about fishing the
Yeah.
whole time?" And I'm like, "Oh, just this one last thing. Like this happened, and I'm doing this." And
And you know, when you're talking about sort of blogs and podcasts and YouTube, I'll disappear down a hole with this stuff. If you know,
yeah,
like latest thing with me, it's like bike packing or even my work, my business. You know, I went crazy. You know, I remember my first office, I ended up putting a sofa bed in there because I just didn't leave. Just ended up sleeping at the office. You know, I was working so late each night, I just didn't bother coming home in the end. I just slept there.
I mean,
And
that's,
I, you know, I wasn't married to my wife then, but certainly, yeah, no, I was certainly neglecting some things that I shouldn't have been neglecting. You know.
I mean, it's just the thing
so-
with the internet now is that you've got access to so much information. You know, obviously,
Yeah.
I'm 31, so I'm a little bit younger than you. And when I first started fishing, I had no friends or family that fished. I just wanted to do it, and I said to my dad, "Look, I want to go fishing, Dad." I was about 10. He's like, "Oh, son." He grew up on the coast. He said, "Son, I've been fishing once. There was like 20 of us that all went night fishing. This was sea fishing." He goes, "And all you do is you cast out." There was 20 of us fished all night. One person had a tiny little whiting. He goes, "I spent half the night picking out birds' nests out of a reel." He goes, "It's rubbish, son. You don't want to do it." And I was like, I do, and I want to do it even more now. You're saying don't, so
It's quite curious when you speak to people that didn't have anyone in their family that did it, like, at all. I mean, I'm almost like that,
yeah,
certainly no one in my direct family. My granddad did a bit, quite a lot of sea fishing. He
yeah,
was really quite into it, but I never went fishing with him as such, and no one in my direct family fished either.
no.
So it's strange, isn't it, how
How you get so into it, not
you
just
just connect with it so much.
yeah, and not just a little thing that you did one summer, and sometimes you
No.
scrape the rods out. It's a devotion. It's like a life choice.
I do think it is. It is like when I talk about, going a few times each week and fitting it around my other things. It's totally a lifestyle thing. It
Yeah,
controls. If I'm not doing it, I'm thinking about it.
yeah.
It's. Yeah, I don't know how my wife puts up with me, to be honest, but she
I had
half the time I'm off somewhere else.
yeah.
I get a bollocking every now and then, but
The worst. You go anywhere with a bit of water. I went to Drayton Manor, and we're going from like the rides to the zoo, and then go over a big bridge. You're not gonna not look over the bridge, are you?
yeah,
And
you always got to have a look.
I'm
haven't you?
leaning over this bridge, going through the kids' snacks to see if I could find any just
Yeah.
bits I could throw in. There was these big chubs sitting, and I was like, "Babe, look at these chubs." He's like, "They
Yeah.
just look like grey fish." I was like, "Yeah, but look, they're
And whilst you're doing it, your two boys are wandering off with a
Yeah.
stranger somewhere. isn't it?
exactly that." Yeah, come on, Dad, I want to go and see that over there. It's like, no, look at these chubs.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? It's weird the way we're programmed, and I think people that don't fish, they think we're so odd, and they might not be wrong. I don't know.
I love it when I'm out in a winter, freezing
Yeah.
cold, sitting on a river, and a dog walker or a jogger comes past and goes, "You're mad, you are." And I always say to him, "Well, you're out as well. Like, what?
Yeah,
you do?
yeah.
What makes you so sane?"
It's when they say, and it's the standard stuff, isn't it? It's just like, are you going to eat it?
Yeah, we're gonna
Are you
cliche.
going to that conversation? And you go, well, no, I'm going to put it back.
Yeah,
And they're so confused by that, So, and I suppose it does seem a bit weird when you say it out loud.
yeah,
I don't know.
I think if you sat down with someone, I mean, a lot of people who say they don't like fishing, I'd love to take fishing and just say, look, this is fishing. There's so many different disciplines within it. There's so many different species you can catch. Some people like to just go and catch as many fish as they can. Some people just like to be out and don't care if they catch. I like to say that I don't care if I don't catch, but we all want to catch.
Yeah,
Otherwise
yeah.
we just go and sit in a field with a book.
Otherwise, you're camping. Isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. But there's so many different things you can do. You can do specialist stuff, which I've sort of found myself getting into. I think you'd probably say the same. You try and target species, but big versions of them species, that's the best way to put it,
Yeah,
And for me, it's always, I've got a few friends and people I used to fish with where everything was so competitive. But for me, it never was. I used to say to them, it's a personal best. The clue's in the first word, personal.
Yeah.
It's my best, And if yours is better, then I'm so proud and I'm so pleased for you. But, I'm just trying to, the only person I ever fish against is myself, And I sometimes I beat myself up about it, but, it's what it is, isn't it, really?
yeah. I think it's a shame when I think people, they can ruin their fishing for themselves if they compare themselves too much to other people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes on the videos I get comments from people that get quite down about them blanking and this, that, and the other, and maybe not catching what they would want to, in comparison to maybe you are or other people are or whatever. And I just think that's it's just a bit of a shame. I think you've got to make sure that you learn to enjoy the process. Do you know what I mean? That's
social media, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the same with all these influencer women. You can't say you've never seen them because everyone's seen them. And they're stunning on every single photo. But for a fact, if you see them Sunday morning without all the clap on and that, they look completely different. And I think it's just social media and the portrayal of this perfect angler and someone who goes out and catches all the time. They have the same down days as us.
I think where I sometimes feel a little bit bad is that what they don't probably appreciate is you're condensing hours and hours and days and hours of fishing down into sometimes 10 minutes. And I think sometimes when you watch that 10 minutes, it looks so easy.
Yeah.
But it's like we've spoken about before, with the perch, you're pulling your hair out sometimes, aren't you?
Yes. Especially when you're doing 2,000 casts for maybe one bite. What do you do?
Yeah.
Do I
Especially
record
if
all
you're,
2,000?
especially if you're stupid enough to fish the River Lea, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you blank, you blank, you blank, you blank, you catch eventually, But let me assure everyone that is usually the case. It's not like we just turn up and we haul.
No, and it's not just you saying that because you don't want people fishing the Lea either. It's busy enough anyway, and all you got to do.
No. I mean, the Lee's a great river. I love the Lea.
Yeah.
But I described the Lea to someone the other day as a heartbreaker dream maker.
Yeah.
Because that, for me, sums up the Lea. Because it's a heartbreaker because it's patchy at best. Certainly, the upper stretches can be quite prolific, kind of. But generally speaking, it's quite patchy, and it's a bit of a heartbreaker. There's a fair amount of effort for very few fish. I think they stopped matches on the Lea years ago because no one ever bloody caught anything.
Yeah, don't surprise me at all.
But then it's a dream maker because it just throws up absolute units randomly. Like really big fish, not like King's Weir. You see that recently?
Yeah, the
19-pound barbel. That's insane.
Yeah, even on the Trent standards, which is just seeing 500,000 kilos of boilie every day,
Yeah.
And they're just getting fat, But even on the Trent standard, that's a huge fish.
Yeah. And and the Lea will do, 19-pound barbel. I mean, that's not normal, but it will do 17-pound barbel every year,
Yeah.
It'll do 8-pound chub every year.
It had the chub record, did it not, at some point?
Yeah, it did a 9. It's done 9s, I think. Yeah, but every year it'll do 8s. It's in it, and the Perch. They regularly go 4. I think Darrell had 4.10 this year. Was it 4?
Yeah. Am I right in saying there was the Perch record was beaten in the summer, I think.
Yeah.
And am I right in saying that was from the Lea? I heard it's from the Lea Valley.
It's from the Lea Valley. I heard that it's a little pond off the Lea, but don't want to say exactly where it is.
No.
I'll probably be wrong, and it's not that accessible to everyone. If it's where I think it is, you need a ticket. But it was one of those ones that were always going to be surrounded in controversy.
Well, I'm sure that pond is probably flooded in the winter. And it might not be fenced, so that fish might be swimming around in the Lea.
It could be. Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before it does some really big fish. I'm surprised that we haven't seen more 5s. To be honest, it seems like we're going in that direction. There's upper 4s coming sometimes or certainly I've seen mid-4s being caught in September, October, and you've got to think those fish at the right time of year, up towards spawning, they could be knocking on the door. So in terms of perch, I mean, it's great for big perch. But again, going back to what we were talking about, the pattern is blank, 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 absolute cheese. Do you know what I mean? And that's just what it's a bit like as a river, really, one of the reasons I went onto the canals for a little while this year was because of the flooding got really bad on the Lea. But it was like I just want to go somewhere and catch some 2s. I want to go somewhere that's more prolific. Where I'll get a few bites and and then if I want something bigger, I can come back to the Lea.
I mean, you fish the Lea a lot more than me, but from my experience, it always seems like there's almost like a year category missing. There's the big fish and there's the wasps, and there's not that many that are sort of that in between size.
I think that worries me for the Lea, full stop, a bit, because it does. When we talk about the fact that it's quite patchy, but then when you do catch one, it's big. Well, that doesn't sound like a particularly good scenario to be in, really, for the next generation of fish coming through.
Yeah.
And I think, some people recognise that, like the guy at King's Weir, sort of like trying to get barbel into the system. Various people trying to do stuff about it. I think it's been recognised, but does worry me a little bit. You know, these big fish aren't going to live forever, and it doesn't look like there's a lot coming through.
No. So I was correct in my thinking then.
Yeah.
It just seems like there is something missing. But so, Nick, before the podcast, and it's going to be hopefully a regular thing for all the podcasts, I asked you to bring some sort of memento or token that represents either a story or something.
And you dropped this on me just 10 minutes before we started, right? But I've got something.
Rummage around in the man drawer, just find something and make a story up.
No, just find something random. I've actually got something that I'm really proud of. Actually, it's really quite cool. I might have to take my headset off so you can see this, but you might not be able to hear me. Look at this bloody thing. What would you make of that? That is my granddad's fishing rod.
That's smart,
That's
mate.
just one part of it, right? I'm not even joking, right? Can you see that? That is the top eye.
Is that 50mm butt ring?
That's the tip section. I mean, look how thick it is.
Yeah.
Made of 100% bamboo.
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't bend. It literally is a broomstick. You cannot bend it.
Yeah.
So how this thing, I've got the bottom section as well. How this bloody thing was even usable, I honestly don't know. I mean, that's the bottom section. Look at them. Look.
Oh, that is awesome, mate.
You could pole vault on it.
For those that aren't that are only listening and can't see, it's
how would you even describe that, Matt?
it is a barge pole, isn't it?
It literally is.
Very cool as well.
You could pole vault with it.
Did he make that himself then?
No, I think he bought it. It was manufactured by someone.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean, it's not looking great. I've got about 3 of his rods actually. That's the oldest one. None of them are particularly usable, unfortunately. There's one that I've thought a couple of times. Shall I take it somewhere and see if I can get new eyes whipped on it and restore the reel seat and then go out and catch a fish on it? Because that would be awesome.
Yeah.
You know, that would be great. But I just don't think they're very usable, to be honest. I'm not sure it's fair on the fish.
No, you wouldn't be going out quiver tipping with it, I don't think.
I could take it to that weedy Tench lake, couldn't I? It's on about. We'll
take it to the middle of this sea, mate, and go shark fishing.
We'll drag them out those Tench out that weedy lake on that. No problem. Yeah. Oh God.
That's really cool, mate.
Well, there you go. So that's my granddad's fishing rod. God bless him.
Awesome, mate. Thanks for sharing.
That's right.
Have you ever been sea fishing? I was saying about taking it shark fishing. Have you ever been sea fishing?
I have actually got quite into it for about 4 or 5 years. I've got a little flat down in Perch which I rent now, but I didn't rent it when I first got it. I used it. I was very lucky. Used it as a holiday home for about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And at that time, I decided to buy a boat. So I went down to, if anyone knows Poole or Poole Harbour, which is where I was down that way, I went down to Cobb's Quay, which is one of the main quays down there, and I just bought a hull of a boat. Just a white hull that was 15 foot long. It had nothing on it. There's absolutely nothing. It was on an old trailer that looked like it was falling apart. But it was just an open day boat. You know, no cuddy, no nothing. It was just a hull. And then I lovingly, for about 6 months or so, built it up, put a canopy on it. I think I bought the hull for about 700 quid. I spent quite a lot on an engine, about 1,500 quid on a decent engine that I stuck on the back because I didn't want to get stuck out at sea. So I put a decent 15 horsepower engine on it. And and then I had it on a pontoon in Cobb's Quay and I used to go out on it all the time. Like, you know, it was whenever I was down there, I'd go out in the evening, you know, with the missus and the kids and whatnot. Very next day, I'd go out and it used to be quite magical, amazing. Jump in my own boat and literally just cruise across Poole Harbour, lure fishing for bass.
Yeah.
And loved it, absolutely loved it. And I'd like to go back to doing it again one day.
Did you used to catch a few bass, did you? Or?
I did used to catch a lot of bass, yeah, but I didn't really ever catch a decent one. You know, it was my boat well, it was like I say, it was only £700 for the whole, and it wasn't really up to it. Really, it was already a little bit sketchy. I don't know if you've seen the size of some of the boats that come in and out of Poole Harbour, but they're ferries. You know, they carry like hundreds of cars.
Yeah.
And there's me bombing in and out of them in this tiny little boat. It was pretty sketchy.
Yeah.
I did used to catch some of the bigger bass, but they were always where the chain ferry crossed, so probably the most dangerous part of the harbour.
Yeah.
And in the end, I decided it wasn't worth risking my life for, and came back into the harbour and was quite happy to catch lots of school bass. But you know, like I say, I'd love to one day maybe get a bigger boat and go out and hit those proper marks, you know, and get some decent bass. Yeah,
that would be good.
What about you? Have you done? Because how far are you from the coast in Essex? Like,
I'm probably about 45 minutes from my nearest coast, but there's a lot around me. The coasts aren't brilliant, but you know, there's often a lot of trips. So I've done a few trips. I've done smooth hound trips and bits and pieces like that. Just didn't have loads.
What bit of coast is that? Because you've got Malden, isn't it? And you go past Malden, and
Malden's my closest, but then it goes all the way down to Clacton, Harwich. I'm not even that far from like Felixstowe and things like that as well. So I have got a lot on my doorstep, but it's not always the best fishing. But there is, you know, there's some plans this year there's certain areas which are sort of kept quite quiet where stingrays come, and sometimes they're up to like £100 and stuff. Not easy to catch, not many of them, but it's a breeding area for them when it gets warm. So
what's the wrasse fishing like over there? I quite fancy that on lures. I haven't really done. I've caught a lot of wrasse, but always on bait, and I'd quite like to have a go. See people lure fishing.
You're not going to get much over sort of size of your hand, I don't think. Sometimes under Walton Pier and bits and pieces like that, and they've come around fairly recently, I'd say. Ben went down there and just fished like ragworm off the side, and he caught a few, all lovely colours and stuff, but not the kind that you're going to get sort of down in Cornwall, Devon.
I've caught some clonking gate wrasse on sort of ragworm and stuff like that, so they're there. But in turn, I was just using the wrong sort of lures for them and stuff. I was using big sand eel type lures for the bass. Really, you know, I'd love to go back down there. I'd love to go back down there now as a better lure angler than I was back then.
Well, I went on a shark trip last summer in between the lockdowns. From
cool. I see a picture of you with a decent.
Yeah,
was it a taupe or a shark or?
That was a blue shark.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's about. Didn't weigh it obviously, but it was about £70 or something. But it was the only one caught that day. But we went out from Brixham, and I got down there early that day and had a little go for the lures around the coast. But you know, just found snags and didn't actually connect with anything. It was really tough, and it's very overfished.
So Brixham, that's Devon, is it?
Yeah.
Brixham, Devon, yeah. So
we went 25 miles out from there. 6 of us, I think it was, and it was a case of drawing straws. I got very lucky and picked out the first straw, so I had the first bite. But you know, these fish, it's just fishing for, you know, even when you catch big carp and catfish in the UK in fresh water, you've got some element of control. When you're out there, you have no control. You know, you have no control of what
it's the depth
fish
they
doing,
use
really.
As well, I guess.
Yeah, and you know, whilst we were out, I had the so the rods went out. We
how'd you fish for them?
Well, it's very scaled up pike stuff, really. You know,
is it big balloon?
Yeah. Well, we used like pipe insulation with a bit of tape around the top,
right?
And you just sort of stagger them at different depths, whole mackerel on. If we could catch a live bait, we did. But something I found out about the live bait is we were catching a few mackerel and things on feathers, but if you touch them with your bare hand, they die within about 10 minutes. So that's why when sometimes you see them, they lift up like there's 6 mackerel and they're whacking them off with a stick. I always used to think that's just a quick way to unhook them, but no. If you touch them with your bare hand, it's like a toxic frog to us, you know.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And I didn't believe it. I said, nuisance. It's rubbish, isn't it? And he said, no, look, he put it, because it had been picked up, they were like, that's no good now. And they put it in a bucket, and sure enough, 10 minutes later, it's belly up. So, so we staggered out the rods at different sort of depths and things, and we were slicking for miles to try and draw the sharks in. It absolutely stunk. It was the worst smell in the world. That and diesel mixed. You know, luckily I've got a strong stomach. I was all right. Rob Hall, on the other hand, was, you know, in a very bad way.
Lightweight.
Yeah, well, probably. Yeah, he didn't enjoy it, most of it. But so we saw loads of dolphins, and I saw a false killer whale out there as well. Do you know,
Oh
it was
wow.
beautiful out there. And then
Yeah.
anyway, we re-chucked the rods, and I said to Ellis, I swear something's just come up and hit that float. And he was like, could have, mate, could have. And then literally we were just putting the rods on because you put the rods on the side of the boat and then you put a lanyard around them and lanyard it to the boat just in case. And you set the drag. We were using circle hook, so I sort of knew how to use a circle hook, just tighten into them, don't strike. Next minute, the rods just get dragged along the sort of bar and we was in, you know. So I sort of reel into this fish with this shark. And I'm like, yeah, fish on. You know, it's stripping off line. And then you forget how quick they are, you know. So it turned obviously and shot off the other way. So I went, it's off, it's off. And Ellis was like, it's not off, you idiot. I was like, it's off, mate. It's gone. And then suddenly I caught up with it. It was, he goes, is it still off? Is it, Matt? Is it still off? And I was like, no. But yeah, my arms were hanging off at the end. But I think that was mainly because it was the reel handle was the wrong way round for me. Because I was using my stronger hand to reel, my weaker hand, my arm to crank it, you know. So I ended up sort of cranking it with two hands, reeling down, cranking it with two hands, and obviously eventually we landed it. But then sort of soon after that, we sort of started seeing the tuna. So I don't know if you've seen, you know, it's quite well publicised now, but the tuna are now. So we started chasing them around and have a look at them for a bit, and I learned some amazing things. I really want to catch one. Obviously, it's illegal to do so, but they might let us. But you know, they were telling me about how quick they can strip line off of these huge reels. You know, the drag on them was set to 250 pounds worth of pressure for one click off of the drag.
What? And it was set like that for the sharks as well.
Not for the quite that hard for the shark, but for the tuna. And
just for the tuna.
If you hooked one with that amount, you can't pull it off with your hand. If you hook one, it will melt that reel off there.
They're such sort of like big solid fish, though, aren't they? Tuna.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they accelerate quicker than a Ferrari, mate.
Yeah.
And I heard stories of where, because you can just lock them reels. Yeah. And he said, where I told you about the lanyard being tied to the boat, he said that someone locked the reel when it hooked the tuna and it ripped the bolt out of the boat when the lanyard like went tight and just took the whole setup.
Really?
Insane creatures, man. And the sea's just an insane place. I watched that documentary, SeaSpiracy. Have you seen it?
No.
It's on Netflix. It's only just come out. It's sort of shocking the world. It's all about the sea and how overfished it is. Not by us, but by trawlers, and it's like a criminal underworld, you know. And the discarded stuff in there, and the bycatches. It's
the bycatch thing, isn't it? It's outrageous. What gets chucked back in the sea, dead or cut up.
It's the turtles, the dolphins, and you know, and the little bit on the side of the can that says, you know, dolphin safe or whatever on your tuna. Ridiculous. They just hand them out to anyone. You know, there's no one going to check that they are doing it safe. And some people who have gone and checked mysteriously fell off the boat, you know, and never got seen again. So, and they also very open to bribes.
Really?
So it's a load of rubbish. And you know, there was some shocking stuff on there. You know, there's a place, I can't remember what sea it's in, but they call it like the garbage patch or something. And it's obviously a place in the sea where it just collects, and it's very like just full of rubbish. And they said that in that area there was so much discarded fishing line from like the long lines and nets and things. That line could go around the world 500 times. Yeah.
You've seen pictures of places like that where you can't believe as well how much plastic and stuff's there. You know, it's like meters and meters of it floating on top of the water, you know.
Yeah. And they said that a lot of it breaks down, but it breaks down into microplastics, which are just as bad, you know.
Yeah.
They were saying that the breakdown of carbon and things in the sea is so much so much stronger than like the Amazon rainforest. It does like 6 times the amount, you know. So if we lose the sea, we lose everything really. And it was really hard hitting, to be fair. Like you know, I was meant to have salmon the next day, and they started talking about salmon farms. And you get that nice pink salmon that's like, you know, from your fish farms and things, and reasonably resourced and all that. A lot of that pink is dyed into the meat. You know, it's a grey meat otherwise.
Oh, is it?
Some of them are covered in lice, half their head missing. They carry chlamydia, mate.
Yeah.
They carry chlamydia. It's and the next night I was like, should we just get a takeaway?
Safe option. Yeah, definitely.
It's really interesting, mate. Like, if
what's the programme called again?
SeaSpiracy.
SeaSpiracy. I'll go.
I would have called it.
Sounds good.
I would have called it Conspiracy, if it was me.
There you go.
But yeah, SeaSpiracy. It's on Netflix.
All right, I'll check
It's
it
one
out
of the
for
top
sure.
ranking ones, but
Yeah.
it's really, really interesting. Like a lot of these, last year it was Tiger King or whatever his name was, and
Yeah,
this year
yeah.
it's SeaSpiracy.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, no, really.
You sound like you want to. Will you do? You're quite up for doing more sea fishing, then, are you? I think. By the sounds of things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit like you, mate. I'll catch anything. If someone said to me, Matt, I know a little ditch where there's huge sticklebacks, I'll be
Yeah.
like, mate, let's
I've
go.
always said that. I'll catch sprats in a muddy puddle. Is
Yeah,
what I say. Just
when I
fish
used to
for
go on
anything.
lads' holidays to Ibiza and like Mallorca or Tenerife or whatever, we'd get in at like 4 a.m, battered, and everyone would be like, "Oh, I'm going to sleep until like 6 o'clock in the afternoon," and then start drinking again. I'll be like, "All right, I'll get up at like 12, go down a little shop, get some bread, get some like whatever I can find, and a cheap little."
I always do the same on holiday. You cobble anything together, don't you?
But you catch it, you're like, I don't know if this is poisonous, I don't know if it's going to stab me, but yeah, I
No.
caught this.
I've made nearly every holiday make little rods out of bits of bamboo or sticks or something I can find.
You're not getting your granddad's rod on hand luggage, mate, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that can't. That doesn't belong anywhere, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I'm exactly the same. Exactly the same. Fish for anything.
Yeah, 100%. But so one of the things I want to talk to you about is I put a little feeler out on Instagram. Obviously, we're both on Instagram.
Yeah.
And just to say, look, we're doing a podcast. Nick's coming on. What sort of questions? Got a lot of the same ones. Obviously, a lot of people associate you with good perch captures, I think it's fair to say. And since then, you've caught some other brilliant fish as well. But I think predominantly people sort of see you as a bit of a perch master. But we've heard a lot about that. So I sort of wanted some different ones. And one of the ones was around your recording. Obviously, I noticed very early on that your standards of video are very good. So one of the questions I wanted to ask is, firstly, any sort of experience you've had in that, or is it first taught? And also, what the original question was advice for, and I suppose we can both sort of touch on this, advice for people who wanted to get into doing their own videos and YouTubing and vlogging or whatever you want to call it, really.
I think I'm at a slight advantage because I run a media agency and have done for 20 years. So that sort of puts me at a slight advantage when it comes to some of the technicalities, I guess. I've always been quite creative, because otherwise I wouldn't have gone into graphic design and media production and all of that. So I kind of, I'm a fairly creative chap and went to, got a degree in graphic design and media and all the rest of it. So obviously that helps with some of it, but not that that's essential. I think what I try and do in the videos is try and add value to people. So I always try and think of it from the viewer's perspective, and I think that makes a big difference. I think if you can try and think, what is it that they're actually going to go away with? That's what I started to try anyway. I think at first it was very vlog type stuff that was, this is me and this is what I do and it's all about me sort of thing. And then over time, I think what I've tried to do, and I think what's maybe worked a little bit better for me, possibly, if you're just talking about number of views and subscribers and the rest of it, I think if you can try and make sure that you provide value. So what are they going to go away with? I think it's either got to educate or entertain, or ideally a bit of both. I think if it's purely a video of you being too showy in terms of here's me with a fish, here's me with another fish, here's me with another fish, I think that offers a limited amount of value. I think it's entertaining. There's no doubt about it that there's a section of the audience, I think, that do just want to chill out and relax and watch the video and enjoy watching some fish. Cool. Yeah. But then I do think there's a certain section of the audience that quite likes to feel like they've taken something away. So that's why some of the videos are done like, perch fishing flooded rivers. I'm thinking, even before I've started shooting or anything, what it is that the people, the viewer's going to go away with. Yeah. Flooding has become a real problem every year. Every year, the rivers are flooding. It's causing us all nightmares. So there's a problem to be solved. Do you see what I mean? And so I then go about trying to create a video that tackles that issue that I'm experiencing and others are. I might only catch one fish in that video, you know, but at least I've addressed the subject. Do you see what I mean?
I mean, I've one of my better videos. There's sort of not quite to your standards, but you know, we just do it for I do it for a laugh, you know, like you do, you know, and if people enjoy it, then that's good. And but one of the better ones was a perch fishing video I did on the Dyson rig, and it's because I was looking to get more into the Dyson rig because I didn't really know anyone who fished it. And I couldn't find any up-to-date videos or anything that sort of explained it, and it's quite a difficult rig to explain, but we did a video on it, and it, you know, caught a few perch, and I did something a bit different where I sat there and had the camera over the back of me and drew out the rig on a bit of paper and said, look, this is how it works, you know, because that's how my brain works, you know. Show me how it's done and I'll be all right, you know. Show me just an image of the rig and I'm sitting there thinking, does that bit go there, or how long do I make that bit? And then, you know, so I think finding them niches, which are quite hard now because everyone does videos.
It's a lot of content,
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much at the moment on eels, and I love fishing for eels, sort of marmite fishing. Other people love or hate them, but I'm going to do a video on eels this summer. But it's you know, it's a nighttime thing, and you know, some of the places we've been targeting don't always allow night fishing, so it's a little bit of a tough one to get the video.
I think with some of this as well, it's a little bit. You need to be a bit careful. I think, like I said, I did one of these with the occasional angler, and I think after I'd done it, I came away feeling like I'd suggested that, you know, like I was teaching everyone how to fish, you know, like, and it makes the assumption that people, I don't know, didn't want to sound like, you know, everyone was a bit clueless, you know, because certainly some people watching the videos would be better fishermen than I am, and that's fine. So you can't just, it's complicated, do you know what I mean? You can't just hang your hat on that everyone needs to learn a lesson and you're the guy to teach them, sort of thing, you know. I think that's quite a dangerous thing to suggest as well, you know. So
people buy into you though, don't they? Do you know, and that's why you've done some videos about your pond and things like that, and people buy into you, and that's why I think that these sort of things would be quite good, because you're not going to just sit there in a video and talk about your granddad's fishing rod, or you know, or your boat, your old boat. You know, I think it's good to get to know people, get under the skin a little bit.
I think that's why, if you can, like I say, at the start they were quite vloggy, and then they got maybe too educational, like it was a lesson, and now I'm hoping I'm reaching a point where they're a mixture of the both, where there's a bit about me, there's a bit of a story there. I think that's quite important when you create a video. Try and make sure that there's a bit of a story to it. I think that's why people quite like a campaign.
Yeah,
I quite like filming those ones as well, showing the ups and downs, you know, and that goes back to me as well, saying I don't want to be the bloke that just catches loads of fish. Do you know what I mean? I want to be the guy that says, yeah, it's hard. It can be hard. It can be difficult. I've blanked. I've lost a fish. I've blanked again, and you know what it's like. It's more of a. It's definitely more of a story if you go through the hardships and then you catch something. You know, not that I'm manufacturing that in my videos at all.
I mean, I think one of the first campaign videos I ever watched was Carl and Alex on the Park Lake.
I think they're good if you can do that. The only problem with that is if you're trying to put videos out regularly, you know, like I see some guys putting videos out every week.
Yeah.
I can't do that. It's not long enough to create anything meaningful for me. I think I need to put together a bit of a campaign, or I need to spend a certain amount of time in the edit. I need to. Do you know what I mean? And that's nothing to do with. That's nothing to do with me trying to create a successful video. That's just for me to create something that I'm happy with. You know. Yeah,
I think some people will record every session and put it on there and get more views than me when I've, you know, spending very little time and very little editing, and that's the community that they've built between them, and that's the viewership. You know, they
I think
sit there and listen for hours. But I think if I did one, they wouldn't. You know, so I just go quality over quantity where I can.
And some of those ones where people are just recording a session, you know, like a day session from start to finish, regardless of what happens. Some of those do a lot better than mine, hands down. Anyway, so. Yeah. I don't know who's to say who's got it right. I think for me, I'm trying to create the type of videos that I want to create, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And And I do like the idea though of, you know, I sometimes feel the pressure of producing them more frequently than I'd like to. You know, you say like at the moment, I've definitely got a spell at the moment where, yeah, I've caught some fish. I could slap them onto a video and launch it tomorrow, but I don't know. I've not got anything that I feel is meaningful enough to share at the moment.
Yeah,
And it might be a combination of the river closed. I've had that period where I feel a little bit lost.
yeah,
We've then been hit with a bank holiday where I don't particularly want to go out where it's really busy. Obviously, that bank holiday that landed when everyone's travel restrictions dropped as well. So I can't imagine what it was like. You know, I just didn't want to go fishing.
No.
And then we've got this crazy up and down weather. You know, so I could string together a video that's me catching a carp on an easy lake or whatever. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Part of me, I'm a bit torn, to be honest. Part of me feels like I owe it to people to release stuff, and then another part of me feels like I owe it to people to not waste their time trying to put something together that's of a better quality. I don't know.
My favourite, I'm not going to go into list who I watch and who I don't watch, but my favourite kind of people on social media are the influencers. So not the people, and I like to think that myself, I do things that influence others to go and fish or go and target a species or do whatever. It's not about this is what I'm using, you must use this. It's very easy to fall into the trap of this is the best product in the world.
Yeah.
That was sent to me for free, you know, or whatever. You know, you see it everywhere. You know, you watch someone who's associated with a brand or whatever, and every single bit of kit is the best thing ever. Do you know?
Yeah.
It's
I don't know if I've always got that balance right. A product placement in some of the videos, it's been quite heavy in some. So that's something that I'm constantly sort of struggling with.
But you wouldn't say this is a good reel when actually you've had 4 new reel handles on it and the drag don't work though.
No,
do you know what I mean?
No, I wouldn't.
So
no.
You know, you need to build trust with people because otherwise, you know, if you're watching, I don't know, for example, a fox video, you know, they'll catch mega fish and, you know, they'll put on a good production, but they'll bombard you with products and they're never going to say they're no good, you know, or people that are sponsored by them, they're never going to say the bait's no good at a certain place, you know. So I try and I wouldn't necessarily knock a product, but I just wouldn't review it. And, you know, if I think something's good and I say to you, this rod is good, you know, the all-rounder rods, I've literally had 7 different PBs on them. They live up to the name. You know, I use them for everything. Everyone who I've shown the rod to and said, have a go on it, you know, I've put them seriously through their paces and, you know, not just used it for 30 minutes and said it's brilliant and done a video on it. I've never done a video on that rod, but you watch my videos and it's like, using this rod again, guys, you know, and it's just never let me down. And it's my favourite ever rod. And, you know, I bought them a few years ago. I bought a pair of them and because I thought they looked cool. You know, they were £1.25, cork handle, nice little green bits on them. I thought, that's what I need. I need some of them. You know, I can do so much. And I've done, I've fished for zander on dead baits on them. I've fished for carp on the surface, free-lined worms for chub. You know, they're just so versatile. And that's, you know, I don't want to be that sort of person that says, you must go and buy this, you know. Go and
I think where we're quite lucky, or where I feel quite lucky, is that, you know, the sponsor that we're backed by, they don't force their stuff onto us. You know, I feel like we get quite a lot of flexibility in what it is that we're fishing with. You know, and as a result, you fish with the best stuff you can get your hands on. You know, whether that belongs to the sponsor or not. And that's quite a fortunate position to be in, really. You know, and it also adds credibility when you are talking about their products, like their rods or their reels. You know, you're using it because you genuinely do think it's the best tool for the job. You know. Yeah.
And also it's always relevant as well because you might be associated with a company and they bring out their flagship float rod that's 50 quid, and another company sell one for 200 quid. The 200 quid one's probably going to be better, but you got, you know, this is a £50. This is what I say to people. This is a £50 rod. You might say to me, "Oh well, the Acolyte's much better than that." The Acolyte's £250.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not in everyone's budget, you know.
Or you're talking about a certain reel and they're comparing it to a Stradic or something like that, and you're like, "Well, mate, come on, you know, wake up." No, it's not as good as a Stradic. No,
But
it's
sort
also
of,
not got the same price tag. Yeah. So,
we sort of skirted around the whole initial question, but really I think we've covered quite a bit on the whole YouTube thing. Obviously,
yeah,
the other sort of difficulties that come up is sometimes about how precious you are with a spot. So I've noticed in a lot of your videos, you cut the scene quite short and have the
yeah.
camera down.
I think particularly on the river, you might have noticed.
Yeah.
Straight, I tell you what, I did a fly fishing one the other day, and how nice it was to be able to use wide shots.
Yeah.
Did you see like the sequence at the end with the sunset and
Oh,
all
it's
that?
beautiful, mate, with that big one.
But you know, I miss being able to do that
Yeah, because I
because
noticed people on the other bank were catching as well at the same time. I was thinking,
Oh, did you notice that?
Yeah.
I should have edited them out. But do you know what I mean? You can't do that on the river. You're quite limited as to what you can do on the river. We've spoken about how patchy it is and how much ball ache and effort is involved in just finding these fish. I mean, you'd have to be a bloody idiot, wouldn't you, to walk all those miles and hours to then do these wide shots. That some of these spots are quite urban and, you know, full of landmarks, and you'd be mad, you know. So, and it does affect the final edit, unfortunately. Hopefully you still manage to produce something that's watchable at the end of it, but certainly it's challenging to make sure that you're sort of creating a nice video that's aesthetic and looks good whilst protecting the spots you're fishing. You know, it's quite tough. But we're now moving on to the lakes. I'm slightly less precious about those. Some of them are quite busy. Some of them, you know, are, you know, day ticket or even, you know, big clubs, and I'm less precious about those. And it's quite nice then as a someone that's trying to produce something, you know, it's nice to then have the flexibility to do wider shots and all the rest of it, you know.
Yeah, I'm fishing a day ticket at the moment. Obviously, I'm doing the carp stuff, and it is slow. You know, I think within like 2 weeks there was 4 fish out. I was fortunate enough to have 2 of those in 2 separate sessions, but it's long periods of time without a fish. There's only sort of so much carp fishing B-roll you can do and chatting and things. You know, I've got a few subjects to talk about because I'm loving it at the moment, mate, because I go down to the lake. I'm the most un-carpy carper ever. I've been that carpy carper. I've had all my rods all millimetres apart, all level, bobbins at the same height, all the reel handles. And the reel handles, I was tucking in my reel handles that weren't even the quick ones. So I'd hook into a fish and have to tighten up the reel handle, you know. I was that guy. Everything was custom, you know. But now, mate, I go there, I fish barbel rods. I've got bait runners. I've got my sticks like a pike fisherman, mate. They're all out.
I'm like that. The older I get, the further apart my rods get. I don't know what's going on. They'll be on separate banks soon. They're like it's got a run between them.
It makes perfect sense, though, doesn't it? Really, to face where you're fishing, you know, instead of just having your rods with the lines like this, you know, because you've got that bend in the rod, you've got better detection, and they're further apart. So when you're playing a fish in a margin and it suddenly bolts, you've got a bit more leeway. But I love just having a photo saying, "Oh yeah, I don't really fish for carp that much," with a hat with a little perch fin on it, and you know, all the carpers hate it, you know.
It's so not carpy.
Not carpy. That's what
the opposite of carpy.
Because I've been thinking about doing a little carp video, and I'm going to call it the uncarpy carper, and I've got so many. So many little funny things that I want to do, you know, because so many people are sheep in that, and fair enough. You know, one of the reasons why I didn't carp fish anymore was because of the toxic environment around a lot of the carp lakes that I used to fish, and I just got a bit sick of it. And you know, now I pull away from it. I see how much, you know, I'm using super steel hooks, grapplers, and they're £1.99 a pack for 10, and everyone else is using like 5 hooks cost them a tenner or something, and it's like this
sharpening them to a pin with a magnifying glass.
Yeah, that'll do.
Straight out on the pack, whack that on. There we are.
The thing is, it's what I see a lot of, and I've seen over the years a lot of, is someone going, "I'm blanking. I'm carp fishing and I'm blanking. I've done 15 nights and not had a bite," and then suddenly they go to the shop and go, "Got this new ESP hook link. Problem solved." No, just wait there, mate. For me, 85, maybe even more percent of the fishing is location. So that location might be location of the lake, but also location of where you're sticking your bait. You know,
Yeah.
If you're not in them, if you've not got them two things,
I couldn't
right,
agree more.
then you're stuffed. And then the rest of the percentage is made up of loads of little things. So obviously you've got to be presenting. That's quite a big chunk of it.
Yeah.
Weather conditions and things like that. But then having a sharp hook, having this, having that, they all take little 1%. So the more of them percents you can build up, the better. But the majority of it is that location. If you get that location right, then it don't really matter if you're using a shell fly for a freezer bait.
Yeah. I think that was my problem with the bank holiday and the idea of getting out there and trying to slot in somewhere is just, I just can't. It just, like you say, it feels like, 80% of it is location. It's getting on the fish, your watercraft, finding those fish and getting on them. And of course, if you're just slotting in, that all goes out the window, doesn't it? I mean, it's this, and then you've got to ask if you're really sort of fishing. You're just slotting in a spot, and I think I'm done with the days where I'm camping in a spot knowing that the fish aren't in front of me and completely unable to move. You can't move. You've taken the last swim on the lake sort of thing. And I'm fortunate in a way where I can just go, well, I tell you what, I'll let that bank holiday go, and I'll go, on Wednesday night or something obscure, or whatever. I'd rather do a Wednesday night and get up for work the next day, and be off early or whatever, than try and slot in. I really would.
Yeah. You don't want to be. If I'm sitting in a swim fishing, especially for carp, because I find it hard now, mate, to sit there with the rods out.
I know.
Because I know that recasting isn't going to make things any better, because I'm in a spot for a reason. Sometimes this time of year you don't see anything, and you have to just go on your experience and put in everything, in places in your head. Right, the wind's doing this, the temperature's been like this, there's been a fish out over there, and you think, right, my educated guess is they'll be here, and you are right a lot of the time until you see something when you're ready to move. So the other night I was down at the lake. There's only 9 swims on it, and there was like 5 booked on. Everyone got in there the swims, and I had 2 fish out of this one swim, but the conditions had completely changed, and actually I didn't think I was going to go in that swim because it don't show very much. You can't fish until 12. It's 12 to 12. The fishing in the midday to midday, and someone got down there at like 7 a.m, camped in the car park so they could get in the swim where it had 2 fish. The rest of the people all scattered around in other swims, and the first thing they did is put the bivvy up, not even rods out. So I got there, I had an idea of where I wanted to go. I see one fish in the margin, which is more than you usually see. It's really clay coloured water, and so I thought, right, this is where I want to be for now. So the rods went out first thing. Didn't even put them on buzzers to start with, just put them out in spots on singles. See what happens. Sat on top of my bed chair, the barrow's fully loaded, and I did that for hours until I saw something else, and then eventually moved. But people come around going, "Oh, you're not doing the night, mate?" I said, "Yeah." Oh, right.
I've done that. I do that a fair amount. I've seen some really good carp anglers doing that as well. Really good, top notch ones on the syndicate. It's quite common. They'll cast a couple of rods out, either singles or like with a little mesh bag or a couple of solid bags or whatever. They'll just cast them out like that, bosh, and they're on the deck, no alarms, and sit and watch the water for 45 minutes. And they're fishing for liners or just fishing for whatever. They're not setting up their stall.
No.
And that's the ideal scenario to be in. But you'd only do that, wouldn't you, if there are 3 swims? I mean, if that's the only swim and you've decided you're going to fish, you may as well set up camp, right? And kick back and try and enjoy it. It should be said that I'm not knocking anyone that does want to just go along for a social. They might have their mates with them, and they might, and that's cool. That's fine. You want to go and just have a social and have a few beers and talk shit for a bit and chuck the rods out, and it's at that point it's not really it's not completely about fish.
It's like sitting in the pub, but there's a fishing
and who's to say there's anything wrong with that? But I mean, if we're talking about catching fish or wanting to catch a fish, then of course that's not the ideal scenario to be in at all. You're making
if you want to be successful, then you don't just turn up to these lakes and just reel them in.
No, you're making it very, very difficult for yourself if it's all about catching fish. If you're just going to go and slot in, then You definitely are. The fish is a bonus type thing,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
that's cool. That's fine. But
this particular lake, they don't show very often. And I'd already had, the other day I had a fish at about 7 o'clock at night, 29.5 common. And
I saw it. Nice fish.
yeah, it was
Immaculate.
lovely fish. And then throughout the night, it just went dead. And the wind switched, and I got up first thing. I always get up first thing. I can't sit there. Do you know, even if I get up first thing and then go to sleep in the afternoon or something, do you know, to catch up. Got up, and I only had, it was about 10:30, and everything's still up, bivvy and that, and I'm sitting there watching the water. Do you know, I call it my widescreen TV. You know, I don't just sit there watching TV in my bivvy. That's my TV, the lake in front of me, and I see. They don't, like I say, they don't show. I see 3 fish top, like within about 3 minutes, and I thought, it would have been very easy for me to go. I've had a 29.5. I've only got an hour left, and I've got to go home. I'll just stay here, do you know? But nah, everything was packed down as quick as I could. All the anglers are looking like, what's he doing? Why is he in such a rush? Something must have happened at home. And I was like, nah, everything on the barrow, just straight round to that swim and just plonked him out again, just on the deck. But it didn't work that time.
No.
Didn't have anything, but it was definitely the right thing to do. And if it did work, I would have been Cheshire cat grin on my face, like yes, like and it, you know, it does happen.
I think that what springs to mind there for me, it's I do worry whether I'm as patient as I could be now. I think other forms of fishing that I've done have stopped me being someone. So when I'm talking about slotting in and trying to work a swim. And, you know, if I'm forced in a swim, I'm almost match fishing, right? So now I've just got to work with what's in front of me and get a result that way. I think part of me is that I'm becoming increasingly impatient, I think. I don't know. It's not that I want instant results, but I think other forms of fishing have affected things like carp fishing. Like you lure fishing, or even when you go barbel or chub fishing, I tend to be very mobile. I do a lot of roving. I move around a lot. So now in my carp fish, well, not even now, even a lot of my carp fishing, I'm baiting up 4 or 5 spots and fishing them in rotation and moving about and looking for opportunities. And so you can see, you know, when I'm trying to be, you can see how slotting in doesn't really work for an angler like that. That's now that I used to do it back in the day. You know, quite happily sit on my arse in a swim that's got few fish in it and get pissed with a mate and whatever. Yeah. I don't know, but I suppose as I get older, I've those other types of fishing, all my fishing, it's very similar actually, regardless of what I'm fishing for. The method is so similar. I catch perch, how I catch barbel, how I catch chub, how I catch carp. I'm most of the time I'm not a bait and weight angler. I'm setting little traps. I'm moving about, trying to find quite often short sessions. So it's got to happen quite quick. So I would say that. I suppose if I had a weakness in my fishing, it probably is patience. I seem to be losing it by the bucket load the older that I get.
I mean, it's tough, especially sort of on a carp lake where it might only do 4 bites in 2 weeks. You know, there has to be something that makes you move. You know, you there is some element to everyone's fishing of setting out your stall because you're there for a reason until something else makes you move. Yeah. I don't think there's any point of just going, right, I'm going to do 2 hours in each swim like you would down the river for a pike or whatever, you know. So there's some element of baiting and waiting to everything, but it's baiting and waiting with a agenda, if you like, you know. The reason I'm here is, you know, this subconscious telling me that, you know, all the planets align and I think that this is where I need to be. And just by moving spot and putting the same rigs out, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get, you know, a fish. Otherwise, you could just rotate around the swims every hour, wouldn't you? And just fish a different swim that was free every hour. So it's tough.
I think I'd quite like to be a better bait and weight angler. I quite like, you know, it does look quite, if you can make it through that first 20, if you can make it through that biteless first 24 hours, and then reap the rewards afterwards. My problem is getting through that first 24 hours or whatever it takes for them to get on the food. You know how they fish B1 and B2, and you know, massive, and they look like having a great time once the runs start coming and the fish start coming. So I quite like the idea of doing it, at some point, but it's so alien to the way that I fish these days.
Yeah, I mean, I had an element of it in the winter because I decided to challenge myself on a very, very large reservoir. I think it's over 300 acres. So really, moving, you find a bait fish. This is what I was doing anyway. I found a bait fish and I thought, this is where I'm going to fish because there's bait fish here. And by moving 5 swims up, it's a drop in the ocean. People said to me, why don't you move swims if you're not having anything by midday? And it's like, actually, bait and weight probably, your whole session needs to be your time. Instead of like maybe you might spend 2 hours in one swim on a small lake, that 2 hours is actually a whole session for me in one swim. And actually, this swim's not really good. So next week I'm going to fish a few swims up, or you've got to put the pieces together. But the pieces are a lot bigger on a. So a lot of my winter was spent, on all day, and sometimes getting 2 bites just as I was about to reel in or whatever. And when you lose them fish to like hook pools and things like that, is or with pike, I never like to leave it very long when I fish. I'd much rather lose a fish than deep hook one.
Yeah,
So
definitely, 100%.
I'm very guilty of striking too early because I've got that fear in my head. I don't want one where I look at its mouth and go, oh dear, I can't see any hooks.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be very, very careful, especially if you. I mean, I don't know. You don't really lure fish through the summer months, do you, or do you a bit? See, I've started doing
surface stuff.
Yeah, I've started doing a little bit of crankbait fishing for the chub and stuff like that. But if and that's more sight fishing, so I don't think it's. But anyone that sort of just generally lure fishes through the warmer months, I just think that's a recipe for disaster if you're not hitting the fish quick. They're ravenous, like the pike. They'll swallow it. Yeah, they will.
I'd much rather, if I was going to go for some like summer perch, I'd much rather go with drop shot and some worms. And then, I've got past the stage of caring about they don't count if they're not caught on a lure, which was a thing for a long time.
Yeah, I've always thought we've always had a bit of banter around that, haven't we? Like, people giving each other shit if they catch them on worms or whatever. Yeah. But I think it's all just in good jest. It's like if people want to catch them however they want to catch them, then great, hats off to you. I think one of the nice things about fishing with worms in particular is that like everything eats worms, doesn't it? And that's quite nice sometimes in a way. You can chuck some feeder rods out with worms, and you might be targeting bream, you might be targeting tench, but you might get a amazing perch as a bycatch, and who's to knock that?
I think that would be my one. If someone said to me, one bait, Matt, for the rest of your life, it would be worm.
I think probably, yeah. I'd tend to agree.
Yeah, it'd be hard to worm or maggot. I think it'd be hard to.
Worm, really. Worm with red maggots. Yeah. And you'll have a good time on those 2 baits alone, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. You catch anything,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're just a fantastic bait and always available if you can go out and get them. You can get them for free.
I think something that I found quite interesting in with the perch fishing, going off a little bit of a tangent here, but I've had it a number of terms, and I was listening to a podcast the other day. Adam Jones.
Yeah,
he was talking about this as well, and I can completely relate to it. Where I think definitely in the last couple of years, I've been guilty of assuming that perch had moved on from a spot when they hadn't. At all. They've just got too smart for me. Okay. And I've definitely learnt that. And the reason that I know, and this is why this dropped into my head, is because I've seen people go into those swims and fish worms and suddenly catch the perch that I was trying to catch with lures. I've seen it.
Yeah.
And so you've not been good enough. Do you see what I mean with the lures? You've just not been good enough. And I think that was quite an interesting thing. And I listened to a conversation the other day that they were having about this, where you've got to switch it up more than you think when you're lure fishing for the perch. I think you really have before you then. And again, it goes back to me saying, am I patient enough? I'm like, I'll be in a spot, I'll catch a few decent perch, and then I won't catch them, and I'll be like, all right, well they've moved on, and I'll go somewhere else. But I don't think that's always right. I think, I I've done a few things this season, the one just gone, where I've just modified things slightly and started catching them again. Whereas the season before, I might not have made those modifications. I'll have just assumed they're gone. You know.
I think like a lot of the fish you catch, the big ones as well, were it's fair to say they're almost once a season fish. You know, they don't come out a lot. You know, I think when they get caught on a lure, it's very hard to go and catch them again on a lure, even if they're in the same spot.
And also, you think you're the only one fishing that spot, but you might not be. You know,
No.
they're probably seeing a lot more of these little rubber lures than you think. And I think they wise up to them pretty quick, you know. So I've certainly this season sort of been fishing like with Ned rigs, and then it's dried up, and then I've got no doubt in my mind if I'd have flogged that spot with that lure, no matter how many times I cast it out, I would not have caught another fish, even though they were there. You know, one might slip up eventually, but this year a couple of times I switched to like drop shot and wacky worms or maybe a little crankbait, and that would then produce another fish. But in previous seasons, as I say, the only reason that I was mentioning it was the worm you said about worms. And yes, I've seen guys come into the swim with like a ledger in a worm, and these fish that I assume are gone, they've just suddenly caught 2 or 3 of them in a session, like in an hour. And, you know, I've been absolutely caning it with these little rubber lures, you know.
I've got no doubt that when we went on that session, when you had them perch,
They
and
were
then we went
probably
down
there.
there and had a load of pike, if we put worms on, we would have had some perch.
Possibly, yeah, very possibly. Although
I didn't them up the stream like that.
I think what was funny about that spot, if it was 2 things really, I don't see many people down there, but there is a few old boys that fish it. And when I was chatting to an old boy at the time when I was catching those perch, he was trotting maggots, and bloody hell, his float was dancing around with the minnows. I mean, he couldn't keep a maggot on the hook. You know, they were being. He was getting absolutely caned, and you could see he was getting frustrated. He was using bigger and bigger hooks and treble maggot, and he was still pulling in these minnows. That's why the perch were there.
Yeah,
there was tons of them. Sure enough, it dried up for me, and I couldn't catch any more perch. Exactly the same time, when I went and chatted to the old boy, he'd stopped catching minnows.
Okay.
They'd gone. The reason the perch were there had now gone for whatever reason.
Okay.
And so I think that was it. You know, it was just one of those. That's why there were loads of pike. I just think we got a little bit unlucky on that day, maybe. You know, that's why the pike were there. I mean, because that morning me and you went out, we had about 5 or 6, didn't we? I think or something. It was loads. We weren't there long, were we?
No, not at all.
And I think they were there for the minnows as well, because I fished that. I went back there and I was fishing it every couple of weeks, right the way until the end of the season, almost going and checking on it. You know, or I'll go and check on it.
Yeah.
And in the end, I wasn't catching perch or pike.
Yeah.
You know, the reason they were there was the bait fish. The bait fish had then moved off, and I don't actually think they were there. So, you know, you could have fished worms and maybe picked them up, but I think in that scenario, I think the reason they were there had gone, the minnows had gone, and then the predators had gone with them, you know.
Yeah.
If only we knew where the minnows had gone after that.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Have you, completely new subject, but one of the things I wanted to talk to you was fishing bloopers. Have you had any horrors on the bank, either injuries or funny things that have happened? I know I've had a few. And
I haven't had any. I've had hooks through fingers quite a few times. Yeah, quite badly. Like, you know, when it goes past the barb. Yeah, that's not good.
No.
But no, that's about it. I've got quite a funny story. Well, once got pissed with quite a famous carp fisherman. Do you remember? Did you ever go to Farlow's back in the day?
No, I've not.
I'm talking about 30 years ago. It used to have a bar on the end of the point. So you'd have. It used to be all one big lake back then, and they used to have a bar on the end of the point. And I'm not joking. I was probably about 18 at the time, and you know what you're like when you're 18, 19, 20. Well, you know, the fishing was very a secondary thing.
Yeah.
And we'd set up our camp, and then we'd drive round to the point, and we would get absolutely wankered in the bar, and that's what we did. And how we then made it back to our, because we drive around there, get absolutely slaughtered, get back in your car and drive back round to your swim. This wasn't on the main roads, obviously. You're sort of off roads. So it's not bad. But how we didn't end up in the lake, I haven't got a clue. And we'd get absolutely hammered. And then one night I was in there getting really drunk with a mate called Martin, and into the bar strolled Richie McDonald.
Yeah.
And we got absolutely paralytic with him. We were playing pool, we were playing darts, and all I remember was giving him a competition to see who could do the most press-ups. I can't remember if I won or lost. And I then grabbed, they used to sell like cider in 4-pint jugs, like that takeout, and we'd always take one out. All I remember was grabbing one of those and going back, and then I can't remember anything else. But so there you go. That's my claim to fame. Once got absolutely slaughtered with Richie McDonald in Farlow's bar.
I remember reading Terry Hearn's book, when it was, and they, one of the lakes that he fished had a pub right near it, or a bar right near it, and they'd all go up there with their receivers and just put them on the thing and get pissed. And,
honestly, it's outrageous what used to go on up there, really. Yeah.
Was that the same at this Farlow's one?
Oh yeah, I'm sure people were leaving their rods out or tying them to trees or doing whatever. We used to do it at Waveney Valley Lakes when I was around that age as well. There used to be able to fish. Anyone that knows Waveney used to be able to fish G Lake, and you used to be able to walk across a field, and there was a pub just the other side of the field. Yeah. And the rods be out, go out a pub, whatever. People used to sometimes lose someone on the way back in the field. They'd sleep there all night and whatever. Yeah. It was just all a bit like that at the time. But Farlow's was definitely like that. Yeah, I do remember. The point was the swim to get, not because it was particularly good at fishing, because you had the pub. You had the pub right behind you. Yeah.
I had a shocker once, blooper for me. I just got some brand new carp rods. I think they were Harrison rods. They were just when I was starting to earn a bit of money. You know, you get to that stage in your life where you're earning a bit, you got a bit more expendable income. No kids, no misses or serious misses anyway. Got some brand new long casts at the time. No, they were long casts. And I was like, brand new setup, going to get down a carp lake. So I went down a carp lake. One of my mates come along, and he weren't an angler as such, but he loved angling. He'd love come night fishing with me or whatever just to get involved. And he had a good fishing knowledge because he spoke to me and watched me so much, but he was perfectly happy just to come along. Anyway, I'm casting, I'm in a little bay, and you need to really punch it low and just sort of clip the branches to get to the back of the bay where the carp felt safe. So brand new rods, you get used to your rods, and I was obviously used to my last ones, and I just clipped this branch and it's looped round, and I thought, oh no, like this is before the days where you just get in a boat and never pull for a break, like you do now. And I thought, I'm gonna have to pull for a break, so I'm winding it in. I've got brand new line on these reels and that, and about £16 on them, tightening up. I think,
do catapult back at you.
This ain't snapping. So I'm walking back with it, thinking lead's gonna come back and hit me. So I'm walking back. As I'm walking back, I step into my bait bucket, and it just so happens to be the same size as my foot, and I flick back and I let go because I'm falling backwards. It's on such a tight line, it's like bow and arrowed my rod into the middle of the lake. And I'm like, that's a brand new rod, that's a brand new reel. My mate's pissing himself, and I'm like, it's not funny. It's not funny.
That's so the lead didn't come towards you, the rod went away.
Yeah, into the middle of the lake. And that was, I was like, no, they're brand new. I was like, right, reeling my other rod in, I've got to cast over it, and I'm casting over it, getting the line, but because it was on such a tight line, just about to snap, it was so hard to get back. I thought I'm going to have to go swimming, but eventually I got it and snapped out of the tree and put it back out. But it ruined the whole session for me. I'd lost my head after that, and must have been hilarious. My mate still cries about telling me the story now, and he's like, "You were so angry. I'd never seen you like that before." I was like,
fuming, man.
I'd spent all my money. I think for the rest of the month, I was going to be scraping together money for food, just because I wanted these rods and reels and could finally afford them. That was probably.
I remember once I was fishing toll pits, which was out of my league. I don't know if you've probably have heard of toll pits, but I was just, it's probably my first proper sort of lake. I've been fishing lots of guys, and of course I remember being on the bank, and I didn't want to be exposed for being the noddy that I was. You know, I wanted to try and fit in. I wanted to be proper carpy and the rest of it.
Yeah.
And I remember in the middle of not long into darkness, I was fishing the edges and they were quite shallow. I remember a swan picking up my bait and it went absolutely ape shit up and down the middle of the lake, creating all sorts of commotion. Do you know what I mean? Smashing all my rods up, and it was a complete nightmare. And there was me trying to be super carpy. I remember
There's
that.
no subtlety when you hook a.
It was a nightmare. It was just awful. It just made me cringe.
This year I've had a cormorant that's picked up a bait off the bottom, mackerel, managed to unhook that and put it back. I've had a heron on the Broads, caught a heron, got that in, unhooked it, put it back, catch and release.
Yeah.
And the other week I had a goose at 6 in the morning.
You're bagging up.
Yeah, so I text my mate, said to the goose, like, there's a screamer, mate, and he's like, all you need is the what was it, the grebe, and you've got the full set, mate.
Like you say, you like fish for everything, right?
Yeah, fish for everything. Birds, fish,
dogs. Anything, dogs, cats, whatever comes along.
Yeah, bending the rod, isn't it, mate?
That's right. Fair play to you.
But right, one more question for you.
Okay.
Bankside cuisine. You're a guy who looks after yourself. You know, you're in much better shape than me and keep
would
healthy.
Appear that way, wouldn't it?
Is it healthy on the bank, or is it, you know?
No, I'm atrocious. You'd expect me to be maybe the type of person that pre-packages their food and is quite poncy with what they eat, but I'm terrible. Absolutely awful. Yeah, I'm like your dirty pot noodle man or whatever. You know, I'll grab. I think it probably goes back to me with don't really plan stuff much. You know, I'll pick up whatever I can on the way there, and I'm so focused with the fishing. I don't know if you noticed. Started going fishing with a guy called Dan. He's the same. He doesn't even eat or drink. He's so focused with his fishing that, and he's quite a big bloke. And how he doesn't pass out, I don't know. But doesn't seem to eat or drink. And I'm a little bit like that. I get a bit blinkered and I'm sort of into what I'm doing and I'm not really thinking about what I'm eating at all. It's something I need to get better at, that's for sure.
I'm similar. I sort of binge eat after a session. So like I'll do all day and then I'll get in the car and I'll be like, I'm absolutely starving. Where's my lunch? You know, and I'll just eat everything I had planned for the day in one hit, you know, but sometimes I'll have an apple on the way down to the lake or whatever, but your hands are usually all gammy anyway, you know.
Yeah. I'm definitely not one of these people that rocks up with a banquet and sort of like casts out the rod and then just chills out and eats lots of nice food and drinks loads of beer. You know, part of me is a little bit envious of that, but it's just not what I tend to do. I just sort of I'm there and I'm either just really into the fishing or I don't know. I'm busy soaking it up and enjoying where I am, but I'm not. I just don't really eat a huge amount while I'm there. And don't get me wrong, I love my food. I'm not really a foodie, but I'll put away food. I'll eat a lot, but I just don't tend to when I'm fishing. I eat just enough to keep me alive.
I love the idea of getting a full-on stir-fry and cooking it all up on the bank and, you know, eating it and feeling good afterwards instead of ordering Domino's down to the lake or whatever, like on a night. But it's just, you know, I want that extra bit of effort of thinking about something else. Like, I'm going to cook this. I need all this stuff. I've got to try and keep it cool in the day, you know, and you know, it's just extra effort that diverts your attention away from fishing. You know, I can't sit there and concentrate on cooking something when there's a big expanse of water in front of me that might be, you know, giving me clues about how I can catch more fish.
It's a bit sad, really, isn't it? I'm a bit like that as well. I'm a bit like that as well. But, part of me thinks, you know, you're better off trying to chill out a bit more and just enjoy yourself and enjoy your food and your beer or whatnot. And then part of me is
we had a catfish session, me, Harry, Ellis, and my mate Alex. We had a catfish session in the summer and nothing was happening in the day. We reeled the rods in the day. Yeah. And just pissed. Do you know?
And
it was funny as, you know, just telling old stories. I'd love to get Ellis on here because although he's not really up to date with the technology, and I'm sure we could sort him out, but he has got stories about every single species that you can think of from every different corner of the world, do you know? And to sit there and just listen to him.
Absolutely.
He'd say something like, "Oh yeah, we caught this fish," and it was like I don't know, £300 skate, and it was the UK record, and I was like, I'm going to Google this just to see if he's bullshitting me. Like, no, spot on every time.
Yeah.
You know, and he's a great angler, mate, and we had a great laugh that day. Because
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about Ellis. Don't actually know. I haven't spoken to him, but I mean, I've seen, the an exceptional angler without a doubt.
Well, he's got his own boat now.
Yeah.
He took me shark fishing, so he's got his own boat now. He's like, we're going to do some shark fishing this year, matey, and so looking forward to that. But anyway, mate, I think we're going about an hour and a half now, so I think that's a good time to end it because I've got to edit all this. So that's
all right.
Take about 5 times as long. But I'm really happy with how it's gone, mate.
Good.
And thank you very much for coming along.
I hope it's been all right. I hope you got out of it what you wanted to. I did. I enjoyed it. Yeah. So thanks. Yeah, thanks for inviting me on.
If there was a questionnaire at the end to say what did we speak about, I can't remember a lot.
No, I don't know, mate. We've just you set through a set of questions that I don't know if we went. We touched on a couple of them, I think, but I think that's
them. Yeah,
it's the best way, isn't it? Just to have a chat.
100%. That's what I wanted it. Just relaxed and I did send through some questions. They were more of an aid memoir of stuff that if it goes a bit stale, we'll fall back onto. But I think we probably could have spoke for another hour and a half.
Easily, mate. Definitely.
But we'll see how popular it is, and there's always scope for you to come back, mate. And
cool.
Yeah, pleasure.
And let's go fishing at some point soon.
Yeah, 100%, mate.
Let's make it happen. All right.
Cool, mate. All right. Well, I'll speak to you soon.
Nice one, mate.